Hello, hello. We're working now. I was green for a minute. I thought I had it. I thought we had it all worked out. I'm like, ooh, day 5. This is just gonna be like good and slick. But ah, could have fooled me. And you know what? It did. But that's okay. Because nothing is gonna stop us. This last message, us finally closing out the week. We have spent 5 wonderful days together talking about rest. The one thing that people don't want to talk about. I just got done talking to somebody who was like, people don't want to rest. People even feel like they can rest. Well, that's why we're here. That's why we're talking about this, because I'm here to tell you, yeah, you do need to do that. You are not Superman. You are not Superwoman. You weren't built for that. There's a reason why you're not a vampire, why God didn't create us to not sleep, rest, replenish. There's a reason for that. We're supposed to accept it, embrace it, get off of this train that everybody is talking about of no sleep. Quit playing. I does that. That's so important. But anyway, we are on day 5 in the Rest Before Launch series. So that means we've come to the end of the show, but that also means that I've given you some options for you to take with you to say, okay, there's a time, we've reached that time where I'm going to make a decision. We're about to approach a whole new month. Am I going to go into that new month crazy, burning myself out, or am I going to sit back and just trust the process? Trust the process that is. Trust that there is something on the other side of your obedience, that there's something on the other side of you taking a moment to take everything in before you keep going. And trust me, it's worth it because of everything that we've talked about, including what we're going to talk about today. I have been there. I've been in it. I've experienced it. And if you notice, I'm not talking to you from a place of fear or desperation or striving. And that's because I've allowed myself to get some rest. Was it easy? Absolutely not. That's not my DNA. My DNA is like, I got this. I'm doing this. That's me. But I have been sat down to the point where I've learned when it's time for me to sit down, so I don't have to be sat down. And there's a certain peace that comes with it, and then there's blessings that come with it as well. So I just want to share that with you in case you're hesitant to go through this process and to really invest in yourself. Like, this is like a love gift to yourself, to give yourself some rest. So if you were here yesterday when we talked about spiritual rest, man, that put something on your mind, didn't it? It's okay. You can tell me. That's what it was supposed to do. It made you think about some things and probably stopped you in your tracks. Good, because that's what it was designed to do. Soak all of this in, soak that in, and be prepared to soak in this last session that we're going to have today. And just allow yourself some space to decide, to get in there, to say, what do I need to do from this step? I've been commissioned. I'm challenging you to make a decision. Are you going to get some rest? Are you going to keep striving and doing things in your own power? Decide what your soul needs before you keep going. So today we will be exploring social rest, another form of rest that you don't hear about, that we don't talk about in our regular vernacular, but we're going to talk about it today. So, you know what I'm going to say before we keep going and get to this place of what being socially rested means. If you have not already, make sure you subscribe to my channel. Click that bell so you can be notified every time I'm posting a new video so you don't miss anything. And then you can be on here live with me to ask questions and interact. I love that stuff. All right. Digging into it, how do you know if you need some social rest? Well, for one thing, let me just preface it a little bit. When I say social rest, I think people think, oh, okay, I need to isolate from people. I need to like stay. Not necessarily so. It's in that spirit of striving again. How can we get out of that when it comes to social situations? So you'll discover more about it as I'm explaining the dynamics of rest that's involved with it. So how do you know if you need social rest? For one thing, if you've lost touch with your people, you've lost touch with folks who you love being around, you get invigorated when you're around them, you always have a good time together. But if you've lost touch with them, where you like, man, I don't even know what's going on with that person's life, or I have things to share and I don't, where will we pick up? And you've let so much time go past, that so many events have gone past, and you know that having a conversation might take some catch up, so you don't even bother. That's a sign that you need social rest, that your relationships are suffering and dying out, and they don't really have to. Another indicator of it is if the interactions that you have with the current people in your circle, because you interact with somebody, even if it's just the people that you interact with at work, if it's depleting to you, and it may not be obvious at first, and I believe I mentioned this on, what was that, day 3, talking about mental and emotional rest. But when you find that every time you're around folks, whoever they are, you got to go home and go to bed, or you feel the need to like have some wine or to just decompress. And maybe y'all weren't fighting or anything, but it's just the energy of the people that you're around where you have to recharge and rejuvenate afterwards. That's a sign that you need some social rest. And let this rest in this instance be a restoration, which is what it means anyway. But I'm kind of framing for you a different way of looking at this, so you don't think that social rest means cutting yourself off from the world, cutting yourself off from people. It's not healthy necessarily. Sometimes you do need that time to pull away, and I'll talk about that in a moment. But we're talking about being poured into, reciprocal relationships. So if you find that the folks you around right now deplete you, you ain't mad. And that's the thing. You ain't got to be mad. You don't have to fight, but their very presence somehow takes from you. Then you need some social rest. Loneliness. When we feel lonely is not, I have a whole bunch of people around me, so now I'm not lonely. It's an inner feeling that we have within ourselves, to where it's one thing to be alone and it's another thing to be lonely. But if you're feeling a little hollow inside, if you're feeling not seen, no matter how many people in a room you're with, you can feel lonely. Of course, with COVID, that doesn't help, especially for those of us that might be single or live alone, but you can still be physically alone and not feel lonely. So if you're feeling loneliness, despite whether you have a lot of interactions with people or not, then that's a sign that you need some social rest. And then lastly, if you are so busy, if your schedule is so full that you don't have room to engage in activities that are just for nothing more than having fun or to have a laugh or catching up, or activities, even if it's some things that you're doing via Zoom right now because the world is closed. I've heard of people doing so many creative things with family and friends, from game nights to cocktail recipe making to all kinds of things, so where you can still connect with people. But if you don't even have room or make room to build or to invest in any kind of connections, then yes, that's probably the biggest sign that you need some social restoration. All right. So what does it mean to be socially rested? Again, I know that sounds weird, but it'll help you to see things differently. It'll help you to discern some things when you can look at a person and say they are not restored or have rested in this area. So when you're socially rested, right, it means that you can have close relationships with people, with friends or whoever, without coveting what they have. without coveting what they have, which means that you are content enough in your season that maybe someone in your life, someone around you is excelling, perhaps in a place that you want to be excelling and you're not, but you can be around them and not be around and have close relationships with people that are excelling in areas that you are not. But you can genuinely celebrate and be happy for them without turning their success, their promotion back on you internally as a mirror for what you should and should not be doing. A person who is socially rested has enough intimate relationships, has enough healthy relationships, has enough healthy reflection from other people to where you're not silently comparing yourself in each situation that you're in. That's another context of where we can feel depleted when we're around folks, like I mentioned before, as an indicator. They might not be doing anything to you, but if you feel depleted, like, wow, this person is doing great, excelling, da 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 da, and I'm struggling in this area, that means that you're not in a place of social restoration. If you, people who are socially rested, they experience intimacy in their relationships where they feel safe enough to be vulnerable, to be completely themselves, flaws and all. A lot of us have acquaintances. A lot of us can be around a lot of people. A lot of us know a lot of people. But how many of you have places you can go, people who you can call, where you can be your complete, unashamed, naked self? And when I say naked, I mean emotionally naked, to say, hey, these are some not shiny things about me, and that's cool. But I know it's safe here with you. I know you're going to walk with me through this thing. I know you're not going to judge me through this thing. And that you're just going to allow me to be me. And you're not going to try to tell me to be something that I'm not. It's one thing to get wisdom from people like that, or who might give you a different perspective, but they're not going to force you. They won't judge you. They won't look down on you, but you can just be you and be intimate, whether this is in a romantic relationship or your friends or family, but you can be honest, not rudely or abrasively so. You can still speak and operate in love, and then you get that same thing back to you. So walk in social rest or social restoration are able to they have folks they can be intimate with, and it's not everybody. They're not seeking to be intimate with everybody. Again, I'm not just talking about romantic relationships, meaning that they meet a new person and it's not like, oh, let's be friends, let's build this relationship. They let things flow. But the folks who they know are the people that they could count on to where they could take the day off with them. So socially rested people experience that kind of intimacy in their relationships. Socially rested people, and this is probably my favorite one because enough of us do not do this, which is you can confidently disengage from people and platforms that stir up comparison, unworthiness, and discontentment. It's no shame if you say, hey, me being here or me being around this person, I don't know, it's stirring up some things in me that it shouldn't be. So I'm just going to politely say no, or I'm going to log off, or I'm going to walk away, because right now in this moment is just not, it's not for me. Not, well, or people, sometimes the flip side of that, we say things like, oh, well, we should all be getting along, or oh, whatever, let me just get over it. No. But to smell when a situation ain't for you, when it ain't right, and to confidently say that and walk in it and say, this is not for me, and that's cool. I'm good. I can do that with no qualms and no shame about it. Socially rested people do take time to unplug from people, even healthy folks, the intimate relationships that I just talked about, and the recharge. But they don't do so in a way that damages the relationships they have, and then they don't do so in a way where those relationships fall away. There comes a time, especially if you are an introvert, and I'm an introvert. You might not believe that, but I am. But introversion is on like a scale. So I consider myself to be an extroverted introvert. So I know for introverted people, there's periods where we just like need to be by ourselves. Even if it's for a day, a weekend, an hour, I got to pull away from all the noise and all the stimuli because I get recharged in silence. I get recharged from my own space, my own energy, and my own company. But socially rested people can still have great relationships, can still have reciprocal relationships, and be like, oh, you know what, y'all go ahead. I'm not gonna engage in that at this time. And worlds are not falling apart, relationships are not falling apart, but they can unplug, recharge, reflect, and then re-engage when it's time to do that. And then socially rested people, and this comes with some real maturity, they allow relationships that they have outgrown to fall away. Just naturally fall away, call a spade, and then they don't chase after it. This would be hard if we have had relationships for 10, 20, 30 plus years, and maybe you with you. I know I'm like that. When I meet people who I like just love and we have connection and maybe we've been through some things together, like I want to keep those people and I want to take them with me. But we can't do that. If you're on assignment and if you're growing, there's even disparity in your conversation. Your conversations ain't the same no more. Maybe things that you used to laugh at or activities that you used to engage in used to be fun and whatever, but now you're like, no, it just doesn't feed me the same way. It doesn't hit the same anymore. So naturally, as you grow and as you move more and more into your purpose, it's a narrow path. So you can't take everybody from grade school, from the sandbox with you. You can't take everybody with you. You don't have to hate them. There doesn't have to be any animosity. But going back to that intimacy and being vulnerable and all of that, everybody can't have that side of you because they can't handle, right, your inner expansion that you've grown into. And they may not be able to understand where God is taking you. You don't need anybody or anything in your ear to cause you confusion or inner conflict because they're just not at the space that you're at. So socially rested people say, all right, we're at an impasse. Maybe we can hang out or maybe not, but either way, you'll just let it fade off and not, I got to keep this person and we've been friends for this long, or how can I restore the relationship? No. Just as like spring coming, right? Where the flowers bloom and then they stay through summer and then through autumn, they start to dry out. And by winter, they're dead and gone. I mean, it comes back around. So there'll be a new person, a new relationship, new things, the natural progression of things. So socially rested people just let it go and then they're open to whatever the new thing is. So how do you enter this place of social rest where you're not striving, not worried about how you appear, how you show up, or you're not racking your brain about, oh, well, shoot, I said this. Oh man, that person normally they get mad about that kind of thing, or well, none of that. But you walk in complete flow. So to enter this kind of rest, you have to be proactive. It's not something that happens in a vacuum and that you wake up one day and you just have all these positive and intimate and reciprocal relationships. Like, no, you got to be a part of that process. Now, part of that is proactively taking time from your busy schedule to connect and just laugh, just to connect with people and not get anything out of it. And I'll talk about that more in a second. But to say, I've been working hard. And so instead of treating myself to food or other things that we can easily become gluttonous within, but to say, I'm just going to treat myself to some laughter. And maybe I could provide laughs to that person as well, or to connect and just communicate with no agenda, but taking the time out of your schedule to spend time in that, to invest in that. That's an investment. To be socially restored is an investment that you make intentionally. To enter social rest, you are able to assess and realign transactional relationships. Assess and realign transactional relationships. Transactional relationships is what I just skimmed the surface with talking about earlier, which was, okay, so I get this from this person, and we kind of stay in each other's lives because I'm able to vent to them and get all this stuff off my chest, and then they like to stir up the negativity. They like hearing all the negative stuff, and then they're gonna kind of feed what I'm saying, which will invalidate me being in my mess. So then it's just a cycle of we're getting something from each other. There's a transaction, but it's not healthy. Or there's many other transactions and relationships, right, that are out there that are not healthy, and they're not building up anybody. It's just satisfying a need in the moment, satisfying a fleshly need in the moment. An emotional need is filling a void. So you put up with something because you get something out of it and they get something out of it. And it's this weird, hollow exchange. So if you really think, okay, at this moment, I need to work on being spiritually restored, then what relationships in my life right now are transactional? And they may not seem obvious at first, but I encourage you to sit down and think about, who do you call when you get stirred up in something? Or who do you call for a specific reason, and not just to be around your friend? Another way to enter spiritual rest is to determine how you can share your gifts in these relationships. So you can be a mentor, you can get mentored, but you have gifts and talents. And I'm always pushing people to utilize those. But in what way can you share that a bit more with your friend? Or what, your relationship, your husband, your wife, but how can you share your gifts to improve their life, to make them smile, to just deepen the connection? And then vice versa. When you start doing that, that opens the door for them to start doing that with you. So think about your gifts, and then how you can use them to serve and communicate with other people. And then, of course, the obvious one, and I didn't start with this because I wanted to show the perspective that it's more than about social media, but take a social media break as needed. There's so many studies that have come out of the increased depression, right, that we've experienced, all generations that are here at this point in 2021, because of social media and the pressures and the comparisons, because of the highlight reel that people are showing. And then you look internally of like, well, I should be doing that, or how come she get this, and then that person, they over there front, that ain't real. Then we get too involved in other people's lives. We are all up in the conversation, or they are topic of conversation in our lives, and we're not even seeing these people in person, right? So take a break as needed. There's no shame in that. You don't have to subject yourself to something that maybe you aren't ready for, that doesn't feel good to you. And then after you take your break and maybe reactivate your Facebook account or what have you, determine how you should re-engage with it. Don't just hop back in it, but determine how you're going to do that. Maybe you just post for travel or something, but determine what's the healthiest way for you to be on social media. If it's as you're looking for careers, because employers do check that. I've been in the room, people, where they're like, oh, we hired this person, or we're looking at this person, let's go check out their Facebook page. No, not just LinkedIn. They will check out your personal stuff. And if they see things that are like, oh, heck no, I have seen the turn down come from that. But ultimately, take a break as needed if it's overstimulating you, not in good ways, and reassess how you should engage with it. So let me just pause and add a little discussion here. Share with me if you've been assessing any of your relationships, or especially throughout this pandemic, if some relationships have become strained, or maybe you've grown and now things ain't the same. If that's happened to you or you're experiencing that, share it, share it, and how it's helped you to grow, or maybe how you've overcome the hurt feeling that's come from it. I know I've experienced that even through this pandemic a couple of times, but I want to hear from you. And then the last thing that I'm going to talk about is how entering into the space of social rest will replenish you for your purpose. When you are socially rested and restored, it increases your boldness because you've created an environment, a healthy environment, a reciprocal environment where you can be vulnerable, where you can share, where you can mentor, where you can be mentored, where there's a pouring out, there is a affirming, there's joy within it. And when you create that kind of a little bit taller, because you don't have folks in your environment that are tearing you down, that are making you second guess yourself, because walking in this, especially for your purpose, you don't have time for that. You don't have time for lukewarm connections, meaning the ones that are going to be close to you. You don't have time to be carrying people for the past, from the past, with you if they're toxic, or if they just don't get it, or if maybe they are projecting stuff on you. You don't have time for that. But people, this, in your place of purpose, you need that boldness, because there'll be times where you got to stand up. Well, your gift, it makes room for you anyway, but you got to walk in it. And so being in this healthy place within your relationships, it is just going to help to continue propel you forward. Removing that toxicity, right, of other people's stuff allows you to be freer. It helps you to be clearer as well. So this replenishes you going through this process because you have boundaries ultimately. And I have a video about boundaries. That book is so good. It's just one that you have to reference more than once through life. But other people's stuff, not like you're being there for somebody, but people's perpetual stuff and toxicity will weigh you down. It'll weigh you down. And when you're weighed down, you have your own purpose walk. You have your own journey. You have your own assignment, not any of the things that we talked about beforehand. A person, or should they go? Well, how much longer do you want things to take for you to get what you're striving for doors to open up for you in your circle can keep you from that. And then it replenishes you being socially rested is because in creating this healthy space where you're being reaffirmed, where you're removing the toxicity, you also create a community of trusted advisors who will support you. So as you continue to grow and establish healthy boundaries and to walk in a flow of who needs to be in and out of your space, as you grow and mature, you're going to attract similar people that have a similar fire, maybe a similar passion, maybe not, you're not doing the same thing, and maybe your gifts aren't the same, but that energy is the same. And so when you go to people for advice for your journey or what you're trying to do, you know you're going to people who are in the same lane as you, that aren't going to tell you something that's going to knock you off track, but they're walking with you in a sense. Y'all all are in different lanes, but you're walking together, and they become a support system. So you don't feel like you are going at it alone, or that you have to pull ideas or feedback from the sky. Although God is really good at giving ideas, like real talk, he is. But he also gives us people to connect with who he'll speak through to you in maybe ways that you wouldn't have heard him. So for each phase of your journey and your purpose walk and getting to that higher standard and that higher place, you will need trusted advisors. And so being at a place of spiritual rest will definitely give you that. People are really quick to forego this more than any other topic of rest that we talked about, or they feel like, oh, it's not that big of a deal, or it doesn't have much impact. But being in a place of social restoration is normally the missing piece. People that just seem to like miss it when they're striving for stuff, or they're doing all the right things, or they've laid the foundation, but not taking the time to assess who is around you, and how you're interacting with them, and if they're what is being reciprocated between the two of you is not healthy and positive and all of that. That's often the missing piece that is taking you down the wrong path, that is making you miss that shot. You right there, but you can't get it in there because you have the wrong people around you. And as long as they are there, it's like a chain where you're looking at the promised land. Now I sound like Dr. King. Or you're looking at your goal, or you looking at whatever that thing is where your heart is like, like this is what I'm working for. But people and not giving any credence to your social interactions will keep you chained, and you'll be looking at the growth. You'll be looking at your standards. You'll be looking at your future, but you won't get there and achieve it. Anyway, so that brings us to the end of our series about resting before launching. We have made it, day 5. This is my first time doing anything like this, and trust me, it was a labor of love, but it was so worth it. And I hope that you took every morsel of this to self-assess and determine, which way am I supposed to go? And maybe not for me not to hit the gas so quickly. Places, uncomfortable places, you're being pruned, and it gets better later. So don't rush it. Don't rush it. Pace yourself. Trust the process, and allow yourself the grace to grow and to be rested. Don't do that to yourself. Don't run yourself in the ground. So if you haven't seen any of the previous 4 videos, yesterday we talked about spiritual rest. Wednesday, we talked about mental and emotional rest. Tuesday, we talked about physical rest. And Monday was laying the foundation of how rest is your best launching pad to dominate in your purpose and your gifts and your skills and your talents throughout 2021 and beyond at that point. So if you missed any of those videos, you can find the links below in the description. But for those of you who are like, you know what, this was confirmation for me. I've been resting and I didn't even know it. For those of you that are coming out of that, I salute you. And please get some feedback, put some comments on here for people that might be struggling with that. But if you're ready for a career shift, like if you've been knocking your head around over and over and over again, if you've been running into a wall, if you have been getting jobs and then 6 months later determining that it's not for you in the first place, then I would definitely recommend that you check out my 90-day career fix premier coaching program. It's all about transformation. I get people to move, right? It is a relationship, a co-creative relationship where I get you to move to where you need to be, which is ultimately a career on purpose. That link is also in the description. And you know what I said at the end of every video. If you like this video, if it helped you, if you found this helped you in some way, subscribe if you haven't already, and then make sure you share it with somebody who you know somebody who needs rest in one of these areas. So share it. One, because this helps other people to see this. We got to share what we've been talking about so that we can get more of the world in a rested and not crazed pace. Think about what that would look like in your community and environment if everybody wasn't out here for themselves trying to make it or trying to get out. But go ahead and share it. And follow me. All my information is there as well. So we are stepping into February. We'll have new content, new information. I look forward to connecting with you. And then just let me know what you thought of the series. So I hope this was a blessed week for you. It was a blessed week for me. And I hope you get some rest this weekend. I'm going to try to do that. But right now, I'm going to go find myself a taco. Anyway, anyway, I will see you in the next video.